New at 10, a case could soon determine whether Jackson is liable for allowing residents to drink lead-contaminated water. Priscilla Sterling and others filed a lawsuit against the city, former Mayor Tony Yarber and others back in 2022. They allege the city knew about the potential for lead contamination in the water but did nothing to address it. The U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals hosted a hearing today, and it came more than 6 months after the court revived the lawsuit. It had been tossed on the grounds of qualified immunity by a lower court. Plaintiffs claim the city lied to residents, telling them the water was safe, violating their due process rights and rights to bodily integrity.